Good evening, everyone. My name is Dwayne Kimball, owner and founder of KMD89, a VA claims consulting, and I'm a United States Army veteran. I am joined tonight by Dave Ptak, everything VA home loan subject matter expert, the Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, Air Force pararescue as it pertains to VA home loans. Good evening, Dave. How we doing?
Doing great, Dwayne. Thank you so much for having me here today. Excited to be talking about home ownership. It is a hot topic across the country.
Yeah, I know. We met a couple of weeks ago and we had a conversation, and I was just like, man, just kept more questions, more questions. And I was asking about VA home loans. You asked me about VA compensation, and I'm like, hey, we got to get. We just had all this about an hour worth of content, and so all this information we got to share with other vets. So before Dave introduces himself, everyone, we got about 40 people. Yeah, we got 40 people. So nice size. We're going to go for an hour. Please leave comments as we're speaking, and I'll put them up on the screen, whether you have a question about VA compensation or VA home loan. I'll let Dave handle the VA home loans, and then we'll go from there. So Dave, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I have a company called VA Housing Education where we specialize in educating military members about using the VA home loan, purchasing anywhere across the country. Even if you're looking to buy something now or in the future, right? It's a life benefit, and a lot of people just don't know about it. I also work at Allied First Bank. I'm a loan officer, also licensed in all 50 states, and still currently serving in the Guard. So I've been serving in the military now for the last 14 years and been in the lending business for about 18. And I am a ninja when it comes to the VA home loan and how you can leverage it and use it. And I'll tell you one important thing too, what we talk about today is that all the information I talk about is from the VA handbook, right? It's stuff that the VA publishes. It's not my thoughts on like what you can and can't do, because a lot of veterans get turned away from using the VA home loan because of myths that are out there, or let's say lender overlays where they're like, oh, we can't do this, but another lender might, so that's kind of like the challenge a lot of folks have when it comes to using their benefits, because they hear one person saying one thing and then another saying another, right? So everything we talk about today is the truth, and it's all from the VA handbook, and it can all be verified. Just kind of like how you do your stuff with like, how do you know about compensation? Because you did it, right? I do this every day.
Right. And
So
sometimes people still test me, which is a good thing that keeps me on my toes. But Dave, what I always like to do at the beginning and at the end, because we had like 8 people and we jumped to 40, and now it's at 62. So if you're joining in, leave a comment in the comment section. I'll put it up on the screen. We'll ask a question, and then we'll get into it. But Dave, leave your contact information. Let everybody know how they can contact you. And the reason why I do this at the beginning, because people tend to drop off towards the end of the hour. So as we go through this, make sure I should have put it in a banner so we could put it in the comment section. But while you're doing that, Dave is going to leave his contact information, a wealth of knowledge. So if you have questions, anything about VA home loans, contact this guy. Okay. Get him on the phone. It's like get me on the phone and talking about VA compensation. So I'm gonna throw a couple of comments up here, Dave. Let me know if you can see those. New
yeah, I can see
horizons
them.
first, but can't wait. These gentlemen are a wealth of knowledge. Here we go. Good evening, gentlemen. Good evening. Let's see here. Thanks for your time educating us. And one thing Dave and I got in common is we have a passion for this. We want to share this information with veterans. Okay. We just don't want to keep it to ourselves. We want to share it. And, that way, if you have some issues, whether it's compensation, VA home loans, you have a actionable, credible source that you can go to and reach out to. Okay. Someone says, hey, got Dwayne's book on Amazon. Wow, it's real. Thank you. Make sure you leave an Amazon review. Okay. So before we move on, Dave, tell us, what is VA home loan? What is a VA home loan?
Well, the VA home loan is a loan designed for veterans as long as they meet the basically eligibility for a VA home loan is the time in service and character of discharge, right? So if you meet the service requirement, if you're on active duty, you get a general or honorable discharge. You can use the VA home loan after serving 2 years. And if you're in the Guard or the Reserve, you have to serve a total of 6 years to have enough points and have an honorable discharge. You can use the VA home loan. And it also actually extends to surviving spouses if a veteran passes away while on active duty or because of a service-connected disability. That's the only time the VA passes, and it goes to a spouse. But it's a benefit that is, I think there's 18 million veterans, and about 12% of veterans have used the VA home loan. Right. And I mean, there's a ton of benefits. Like, we're going to talk here for like an hour, but seriously, I can talk 6 hours on just like some of these subjects. Right. I mean, I can kind of jump into some of the benefits because, one of the big benefits of the VA home loan, hands down, is that there is no down payment requirement. Now, does it make sense not to do a down payment? Right. That's up to each person and their financial situation. Right. And since a couple years ago, they actually lifted the cap. So if you want to buy a $2 million property with no money down, you can do that as long as you're eligible and qualified, right? Two parts to that: eligibility, which probably most of the people on the call are eligible to use the V loan. Qualification is what limits you as far as how much you can purchase up to or a max mortgage payment. Plus no
Wow.
private mortgage insurance, which that alone saves you a couple $100s. The barrier to entry to be a homeowner in the United States is the down payment and closing costs combined together to actually purchase a property, especially if rates have gone up and also property values have gone up.
So Dave, you talked about down payments, and, you may not need one. Um and I'm sorry if I missed this. I know you talked about the years. What does the veteran have to be at a certain service connected percentage to get what is it called, the certificate of eligibility, or is there any additional benefits if the
Oh yeah.
veteran is service connected at a certain percentage?
Oh yes. There's a component, what's called the VA funding fee. It's a fee the VA charges from the regional loan center, not the VA hospital, the regional loan center, that based on like if it's the first time you're using it, if you're using it multiple times, how many down payments you have. That's if you're going to do a down payment or not. That VA funding fee changes. Now, if you have a service connected disability, then that fee is waived, right? And that's a big benefit because it can be as high as 3.3% of a purchase price. So on a $500,000 property, well, you're talking $18,000 in fees from the VA that gets rolled into the mortgage, because you still have to pay closing costs on a purchase, but the VA funding fee is the only fee that gets rolled into a mortgage. Now, where a lot of people might have questions is, I just started the VA disability process, but I'm also going to be buying a house. So let me ask you, because I'm not sure exactly how this part works. When the VA disability, basically from like the VA standpoint, as long as a case number has been assigned to you because you've started the application process, where is that step in the beginning?
Where does it start?
Yeah. So like if you file a disability, you get a case number. When do you get a case number? After you, like, once the VA receives the paperwork?
Right. So it's not what you're referring to is called an EP. So once the
Okay.
VA gets that claim, the VSR that does the development, they will create an EP, whether it be,
Ah,
maybe if veterans claim an IU, individual unemployability, a new claim, or something like that. And then it starts at that particular point. That
okay.
EP gets assigned.
Gotcha. And so if you close on a home after that's been assigned, but your VA disability hasn't been granted yet, or you've been awarded it, right? You close on your home, you get charged a VA funding fee. After you've been awarded your disability, then you can ask for that refund from the VA for the VA funding fee.
So who would the veteran have to contact at the VA? Because when I worked there was a department called Loan Guarantee,
Yes.
but
So they reach out
I
to
don't
the
think they had a
regional
number.
loan center for that.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And I put David's email in here. So if you're in that situation or you got additional questions, email him. That's his email. Okay. And that's something I didn't know, Dave. When you just said that, I was like, wow, okay. That's some good information. So I'm gonna leave that up for a minute, and we're gonna start getting into. We'll take a couple of questions, Dave, then we'll get back to conversation. We have a VA claim question. When submitting a personal statement for a supplemental claim, should I reference the applicable M21 section that outlines the use of a private DBQ? I would, because I did a video today and I was talking about what I thought why there was a lot of duty to assist errors that the decision review officers are finding at the high level review. And the training is not like when I went through as in Raider training. Okay, so help them out, give them that information, and hopefully they go and look it up. Whenever I used to rate a claim, and a veteran put a 38 CFR, I was like, okay, let me go see if the vet knows what they're talking about. And a lot of times they did. So yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And we're going to jump to a VA home loan question right quick, Dave. John says, can you get a no income verification VA home loan?
That's a good question. So the VA will always they're going to require to verify your income, even if it's your disability. They're going to verify that. The only time they don't verify income, but they verify a source of income. There's a difference, right? Verifying income is like how much you make. Verifying a source of income is, are you employed and currently employed, but not verify the dollar amount, right? That's a distinction. The only time that applies is in an interest rate reduction refinance loan. It's called an EARL. So if you have a VA home loan and let's say rates drop enough that it makes sense to refinance, you can do that with an interest rate reduction refinance loan. They don't verify your income, but they verify a source of income, and then there's no appraisal needed. It's actually a pretty easy process to do that.
Okay. Now, when we talk about income, Dave, let's just say a veteran is 100% permanent total, and the VA is paying them $4,000 a month, which is tax-free compensation, and they have a job that may be paying them $50,000 a year. So they're getting roughly, 50,000 from the VA and then 50,000 from the W-2. So that's 100,000 a year, right?
Right.
What I know you had talked about, I think it's grossed up. The VA compensation is grossed up. Can you explain that process?
Yeah. So one of the things with the VA disability is, and there's also a lot of employment questions people have, but with the VA disability, first off, you can use that income right away. So as soon as you receive it, you don't have to wait 2 years or a year of receiving. You can use VA disability right away. Disability is also tax-free, so a lender will actually gross it up another 25%. So if you're getting 4,000, now you can get, quick math to it, 25% for that stuff, what, $4,800? You can actually qualify with $4,800 on that. So that's another piece. The third part to that is depending on where you are in the country, right? So you can use that income right away. And depending on where you are in the country and depending on your disability rating, you can also qualify to have your property taxes waived, which is huge, right? And I'll give you an example. In Illinois, if you have a 70% or higher disability rating, which is one of the lower of the states that have it, if you buy up to a certain dollar amount, your property taxes are waived. And I'll tell you that in some of the counties, you can buy a $400,000 home and taxes are $18,000 a year. Just
What is that, like
imagine.
Gurney, Northlake?
Yeah, Gurney area. You know the area in Lake County. And I'm like, that's insane, right? It's crazy. But the thing is that with that VA disability, just imagine knocking off $1,400 a month of your payment because you have a VA disability. So it actually opens up home ownership for people. Now, one of the things I think that people don't know at times, because this happens to me, is I ask a veteran, do you have 100% disability that's PNT, permanent and total? And they're like, I actually don't know. I have 100%, but I don't know if I'm PNT. So, I walk them through the app, like, hey, how do you check the website to see if you have it? And then they're like, oh yeah, I do have it. And I'm like, man, there's a lot of benefits that you're missing out on. But that's Illinois. But if you go outside of that, it definitely changes. Like in Virginia, it's county based, not state based. So every county will have a different requirement. Some will have 100% PNT. Some will require, they'll have a cap on the acreage. Some will cap on the dollar amount right? So it changes. So make sure you know what that is.
And it's funny you should mention that by county. Here in Florida, what's unique was I was talking to two different veterans in two separate counties, and one veteran, he won his appeal, meaning he was 100% permanent total, and he appealed the effective date, and it went back 2 years.
Oh,
But he
wow.
had already paid property tax. He went to the county. County said, "Oh yeah, you got up to 3 years. We'll back pay you. We'll give you that money back." So he said he had told another veteran in a neighboring county, and that county would not do it. They were same scenario. Both of them won their early effective date for 100% permanent total, and one county would go back up to 3 years once they sent. He had to get a new summary letter which shows the new effective date of the 100%. Both of them got the same letter. One county said, "Yep, we'll go back up to 3 years." The other county was like, "Nope, we don't do that." So it's definitely worth your while to go down to the county if you're 100% and say, "Hey, I'm 100% permanent total. What, is things there's no property tax. What are the stipulations?" Because most counties here in Florida, I think they said, I was talking to someone, you have to apply by the deadline each year is like March 1st or something like that,
Yeah.
I believe. Some veterans were telling me. So we're going to take a couple more questions here. I'm just kind of going back and forth between compensation and home loans. How to Wayne, upon submission, would a notice of intent cover only one condition or multiple conditions? It will cover multiple conditions on that claim form, but you get one intent to file per claim form. For example, you do an intent to file, let's say February 1st, 2023. You submit a 526 EZ on March 1st, 2023, and submit another 21-526 EZ on May 1st. That intent to file is only good for the first 526 EZ, not the second one. You would have to submit another intent to file and then another 526 EZ. Okay, Dave, this is for you. It's that time. Dave, will the VA lend for purchase of property for family or larger?
So that is a great question because a lot of veterans don't utilize their VA home loan to buy an income property. Now, you're the VA loan is designed to be a primary residence and you intend to occupy it within a 60-day period, but you do have a grace period up to a year. Anything over a year for occupancy would be considered a no-go with the VA. You can purchase a single family, a condo, which is pretty easy for a lot of folks out there. You can get a condo waiver. Veterans can buy any condo that they want with a waiver. It's easy. You can purchase a farm, like a farm residence, and you can also purchase a multi-unit, which is 2 to 4 units. But the VA also goes a little step further. You could buy a 4-unit building plus a commercial space. Now, that commercial space can't be too big, otherwise the VA won't approve it. And that's where the challenge comes into play. I believe it's like 25% commercial space compared to the whole unit, which is tough to do depending on where you're at. The nice thing with buying a multi-unit and using your VA home loan is a lot of times you actually qualify for more, right? Because the VA allows you to use rental or proposed rental income from a multi-unit, even though you're not the owner of it yet, but you have the proposed rental income to offset your mortgage payment to qualify for a VA home loan. So we'll see people get qualified for like a $300,000 single family home and like $900,000 to buy a multi-unit. And if you're in the Chicagoland area, like we do a lot, I'm from Chicago, they have a ton of multi-units and the rental income is very strong in those areas. The only caveat to that is that you have to have 6 months of reserve. So if a mortgage payment's $1,000 a month, you must have, 6,000 saved up somewhere. And they allow you to use TSP accounts, which a lot, or 401ks. You can use 100% of that, which a lot of individuals have that. Just note, you cannot use gift funds for your reserves.
Okay. It's funny you should mention TSP. I'm in a tax strategist group, and a gentleman was saying, "Hey, I bought a home in Southwest Missouri." He was asking me about that area because I'm from Missouri. I'm like, "Not that area." Uh, on the opposite side of the state. So he said that, and and I can't remember the conversation, but he said he was able to get finance based on his 401k. Have you ever heard anything like that?
Yes. So they do an asset depletion loan.
Hmm.
Now, with VA, I would have to double check, but I believe that you cannot do that with a VA home
Okay.
loan. It's like because basically they look at your total assets, they divide it by 365, and then that's what they use. I mean, like by 30 years. So that's why they take your
Okay.
total assets and divide it out by 360.
Okay. Now I want to go back and revisit what you were saying about the condo loans. I'm gonna give you an
Yeah.
example. So, and you talked about they have to occupy the house. So let's just say someone has certificate eligibility they never use, right? And they say, okay, I want to buy two condos. So if they go buy a condo and they stay underneath their limit, they say, okay, I'm gonna stay there for 30 days, and then they rent it out. And then they say, okay, I want to go buy another condo, with under that limit that you spoke of. Is that possible? Can they do that? And then
So
rent
that's
both of them out?
So it's a little bit tricky. So one, the VA loan is basically your right to use, right? The VA doesn't have a preset limit on how long you have to live in the property, but it has to make sense. And I'll give you an example. Like in your case, right? If you bought a condo and then a month later you want to buy another condo in the same building, that's not gonna make sense.
Okay.
If you just bought a condo and a month later you're PCSing somewhere, or you're like, hey, I'm relocating for work to another city, hey, it's 70 miles away, you can go ahead and buy another condo if you want. That makes sense.
Okay.
If you buy a condo and then a couple months later you're like, this isn't going to work for me, I need more space, I need to buy a single family home, even if it's down the street, that makes sense,
Okay.
right? But you, because the VA loan, you'll hear a lot of times people out there will say, oh, you can't use it as an investment vehicle. I've had people from the VA come and say that, and then nowhere in their handbook does it say that. That's number one. It's an FHA thing. That's not a VA thing.
Okay.
You can use it as many times as you want. You can have multiple VA home loans at the same time. There's a cap then, right? At first you don't have a limit, but once you use it and you keep the home, then you have a limit on like how much you can use before you have to do a down payment. There's also some technical things within that. We'll see if someone asks, then I'll go into it, because it's like a lot of this stuff you can go down a rabbit hole. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then it's, so the important stuff is, as long as you guys got my contact info, you could always reach out to me offline. If you go to VA Housing Education, you could schedule an appointment with me as well. And then I kind of go through a lot of the things with you. But everyone's situation is unique, right?
Mhm.
Nice thing about like the stuff that we do, it's general, because you still need to know how the benefit works as a whole. And then you talk with a professional to be like, well, this is exactly what your situation and how it fits into what the VA guidelines are. So then you know what it is. And I'll tell you one thing too, is that never self disqualify yourself. I see too many veterans will be like, no, I can't use the VA loan because of X or X. And then they actually can use the benefit. They just didn't know how they can actually make it happen. But based on their own research, they disqualify themselves. So don't disqualify yourself.
Hey, thanks for that, Dave.
Yeah.
And just so everybody know, I see a lot of my followers in here. This is the first time Dave and I, did this, and we were talking earlier this week, and I was like, hey, is it possible? Let's try to do this maybe once a month, and maybe we can let us know. Leave a comment if you want us to maybe put together a Zoom like this, where you can talk to us live instead of us just trying to read the question, but you could talk to us live maybe for an hour. Okay. So let's get back to the comments here, Dave, real quick. Melvin Waters, good evening. First chat session, but constantly watching your videos. Thanks for the education. Not a problem. We got, let's see, another question from It's That Time. Does the VA have a no doc loan?
They do not.
Okay. That was easy.
That was an easy.
That was easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. Okay. So let's get to conversation question. I am service connected for bronchial asthma, bronchial asthma. Am I able to claim sleep apnea and also allergic rhinitis, or is that pyramiding? You can claim it, but one thing about the respiratory conditions or any body system, you must read part 4 of the 38 CFR at the beginning of that body system, because it will tell you which diagnostic codes to combine. I know where to go and find the information and look to see which diagnostic codes they're talking about. So, Eric, I don't have that memorized, so I can't say that. But within the body system, especially respiratory, they have like 3 or 4 different sections, and I believe sleep apnea is in a different section than the allergic rhinitis. But that's a definitely good question as it pertains to pyramiding. So, while I look for another question for us, Dave, what would be the first step if someone says, "Hey, okay, I want to get a condo." They contact you and they say, "I want to get a condo or a home, single family home, or duplex or fourplex or whatever." What is the first? What are some of the documents that you're going to ask them for?
That's a great question, and I'm going to lead it with when you do a pre-approval, you have to submit all your loan documents to the lender, which typically includes your pay stubs, the most recent 30 days of pay stubs. It's going to be the last 30 days of bank, so like the most recent bank statement is going to going to be required. And if you're self-employed or you have any type of self-employment income, then typically they're going to ask for the tax returns and 1099s, W-2s, all that from you. And if you have children and claim claim what's it called, child services or child care, then they're also going to request that they take a look at your taxes, because the VA home loan is the only loan product in the country where they use child care expenses against you to qualify for a loan.
Wow.
So, but
Oh,
if you've
okay.
claimed it and your child is not doing that anymore, you just have to write a letter of explanation for that. It definitely affects you.
Okay. All right. Oh, that's awesome. So let's keep
Right.
going with some of these questions. I'm
Yeah.
trying to flip flop back and forth. My claim has been assigned to a rater for almost 3 weeks. Is this normal? I have been told nothing is further is needed for me. Miguel, when I rated, when they came out with what's called VVMSR, that's the software that we will, as a former rater, when I rate it, we would complete rating decisions. Now, it was 7 days. Once that supervisor assigns it to you, your queue in VBMSR, they said 7 days. Then they went to 5 days. Then they went down to 3 days. So I don't know what it is right now, but a lot of these raters, and they're like millennials or something. I don't know. They rate different, you know. So I don't know what that time frame is, but if it's been sitting in somebody's queue for 3 weeks, you know, I'm surprised the supervisor or somebody is not asking a question of what's going on with that. Okay. Dave, this is for you. What is the DTI ratio for VA home loan?
All right. Do we have an hour? All right. So the VA looks at it's kind of complicated because they look at both depending on your situation. If they technically look at what's called the residual income, right? So what the VA does, which is actually unique to what other loan products do, because you could technically have a 70 or 75% DTI and still qualify. How that works is the VA will look at your total income, subtract out your taxes, Medicare, like all the taxes that you pay. They subtract out your liabilities, and they also factor in utility costs, which are 14 cents per square foot, into your loan. And then they assign a dollar amount that you need, like a minimum dollar amount that you need to live on. And if you meet that criteria, typically you're going to be qualified for the loan. Now, what I've seen for active duty individuals is they do. So that's like for veterans, and National Guard members and reserve members fall into that category. Active duty individuals fall into typically a 55% debt to income cap, because the VA, for whatever reason, they just cap it. So you can't go over it. But that's also based on your circumstances. And it also is applied where if the lender has like an automated system and it gets approved, then as long as it gets approved, you're good to go. And if you have, like, let's say you might have some credit issues or things that you're working through that come up on your credit, the VA might be like, you know what, we can do this, but we need someone to actually look at it. That's what's called a manual underwrite. Someone manually reviews it, right? So someone manually reviews your claims. They probably wish there was an automated system where you just put in the things and it would spit it right out. It would be moving a lot much
But,
faster in the
uh,
disability process, right?
uh, I'm gonna ask you a question, Dave. Since you said
Yeah,
underwriters, do you know any underwriters?
I do. Why?
Or they, what?
They're not that fun.
That
Is that what
was
you're
my next
asking? They're not
question.
that fun.
That was my next question because people will be like, "Oh, you used to rate," and they were like, one guy just kept looking at me. I'm like, what? He was like, "I never met a rater before," so that's why I asked that question because I never met a underwriter. I'm like, what kind of people are they?
Yeah.
Do they watch football? Do they watch ESPN or what do they do? You
What kind of dorky? Well, because they're all just looking at the guidelines, right? They're just kind of in their
know?
dungeons, like looking through all this stuff, trying to figure it all out.
And
And they
that's
got to
why
work with the VA.
right, and that's why I tell people when I worked at the VA and we were all on a secure floor, you come up there, it was quiet. People had the headphones in, and you were just
Yeah,
down like this the whole time, just because you were just looking at so much information. Okay, all
right.
right.
And that's the
So
thing. Like they're doing the same thing.
okay, I was just curious. I'm like, man, I never met somebody that said, "Hey, I'm an underwriter."
Yeah,
Uh,
I know some. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So, Douglas, how do I know if a DBQ is sufficient? Douglas, it's you may not know if you hadn't rated as a trained rater by the VA. They train us on what makes a DBQ sufficient or not. But Douglas, I have videos on my YouTube channel where I explain it. Also, if you need a private Q&A and one of my associates to go through an example of John Doe DBQ and explain it to you, we can do that as well. We got a gentleman, Dave. It's that time. I think he's going to be giving you a call because he is asking a lot of questions and good questions at that. Can you buy down a rate on a VA loan? If so, how low?
Also, great question. And it doesn't always make sense to buy down an interest rate. There's a couple different things that factor into it. The cost of doing a buy down, let's say, so like, let's say interest rates are 7% and you want to get down to a 5.5. Well, it might, if you have a $500,000 mortgage that you're getting, it can cost you $20,000 to get that. So when we look at what makes sense to buy down a rate or not, is we typically look at the payment difference between, let's say, a 7 and a 5.5, and then divide that by the cost of the loan, which lets us know how long it takes to recoup that money. Because if you buy down, if you spend 20 grand and it takes you 20 years to recoup that money from your monthly payments, well, guess what? Most likely rates will drop and you're going to refinance anyway. So it wouldn't make sense. But if the interest rate costs, let's say $2,000 to drop the rate 0.5%, that's a different story, right? That would make sense. So it's all circumstantial. And another thing that the VA does allow is that they do allow for what are called 3-2-1 buy downs. So let's say the interest rate right now is 7%. So your first year, your interest rate would be 4%. Then it would be 5%, 6%, and then 7%, right? So you can actually buy down, you can do it in that sense as well, but that requires the sellers to pay for that. And that's really tough in today's market because of how competitive it still is because of limited inventory. So hopefully that answers that.
All right. Thanks for that. Let's see. Here's a compensation question. How can the VA reduce 100% P&T? As a rater, number of years I rated, I probably saw that where they sever permanent total. I maybe can count on one hand. You don't see it that often. A lot of people think it's because you 100% permanent total, you filed a claim and they go through everything. That's just not. That's a YouTube myth. Okay, uh, like
There's a
I
lot of
hear
those out there.
yeah, I'm like, and I did a video that talked about they said, So when you hear something like that, ask a question. What regulation? What CFR or court case that states that they'll go back and look at everything, and Raiders just don't have that time. But there are some instances where it could happen. All right, Dave, this question is for you. As a general contractor and a veteran, can I use a VA loan to build my own residence?
I
Hmm.
like that. So,
Yeah.
no, but I don't want to make it that short. Like, no, but you can use the VA home loan to do a construction loan, including land acquisition. The issue with the VA home loan is they're not from everything that I've seen, I know a couple lenders. So Eric, if you reach out to me, then I can connect you with somebody that can help you with that. Uh, so you can actually use the VA loan to do the land acquisition, including the construction costs of the property. So that's actually a pretty nifty option. Most people don't realize you can do that. And if you already own the land, you can also get a construction loan to build on that property. The contractor will have to get VA approved. So Eric, maybe you might know somebody that is a contractor as well that might hook you, might be able to let you work underneath them to kind of do something, right? But that's something you just have to figure out. But they won't let you be your own GC. Typically, to do something like that, you would use like a credit union, but then the down payments are pretty high on that. That's like 25% down payments on those types of construction loans. But with the VA loan, it's 100% financing, land and construction.
Wow. Okay. Moving right along. Chris Drexel says, "Good evening, Dwayne and Dave. Good evening,
Good
sir."
evening.
Yeah. See, I'm telling you, David is dropping a lot of nuggets, and he's not stuttering when he's giving you this information. So it's up here, and he's just parlaying it. It's just coming out. He's rolling with it. All right, Sarah, I've added my mother as a dependent, but SSA reduced her SSI payment. I don't want to interfere with her SSA benefits. Can I remove her as a dependent, and how? You could call the VA and let them know that, or you could put it on a VA form 21-4138. But I believe if you put it on that form, they may not even take action with it. But look at the dependent form itself, okay, and see if it gives any instructions as to when to remove a dependent. If not, then you could put it on a VA form 21-526EZ and say, hey, I'm not claiming any disabilities. I want to remove my mom as a dependent, okay? Let's see. Can veterans themselves understand P&T use Chapter 35, or is that for dependents only? I would say call the VA education number, okay? Raiders have nothing to do with the education and the Chapter 35 benefit payout. So I don't want to give you any incorrect information. So in that notification letter that you receive when they granted you 100% permanent total, not the rating decision, but the notification letter, look for that 800 number, VA education, and they can answer all your questions as it pertains to Chapter 35. RVSRs, the only thing they do is grant the benefit. That's it. Okay, I'm looking through, trying to get another VA home loan question. Okay, here we go. What about buying land to build on? I think maybe just talked about a little bit about that.
Well, so you can't use it to purchase land solely. It must be purchased land with construction at the same time. If you own the land, then you do a construction loan. But land loans are pretty straightforward to get. You get them at typically like a local credit union. So unless but those land loans are typically pretty easy to get.
Okay. Here's another question for you. I'm not working. How can I get past the variable income hurdle? And is there a debt to income restriction?
Great question. So they will verify employment. So you do have to work. Even if you're buying, let's say, a multi-unit, and I think we covered the debt to income restriction. Sometimes there's a debt to income restriction. Sometimes there's what's called a every loan's going to have a residual requirement, but some loans will have a DTI requirement on top of that, even if they meet residual income. But they will verify your employment. And you don't need a 2-year, like some people think like, oh, I just transitioned out of the military or I just started a job. You don't disqualify yourself, because I get that all the time. Like, I thought I had to wait 2 years from leaving the military to use my VA loan. I thought I had to be here for 2 years before I can apply. Like, I had to work for 2 years before I could apply. That's not the case. Like, you finish school, day one, apply for a VA home loan. You're a veteran, you're not working, but your spouse is gainfully employed. You can use the VA loan with solely your spouse's income, even if you're receiving none. You can use the VA loan. If you're going to school, you can't use BH to qualify for a home loan. You can't use it. Disability, Social Security, you got a pension, spouse is gainfully employed. You can use all that income to qualify.
Wow.
And if you get like a job, because sometimes veterans will, man, there's so many scenarios and situations out there, but you might have a veteran that took some time off for whatever reason, went back into the workforce, took a certificate, and then all of a sudden, like because they got a certificate, like going to school, then they can already reactivate using their VA home loan and they don't have to wait 2 years. Plenty of situations like that.
Okay. Dito girl, hello from Texas. Can you shed some light on why the VA would grant 0% for tinnitus due to pyramiding? If it's if it is the only condition rated at the moment, hearing loss was denied and sitting in front of the ALJ. Actually, my first claim to ever rated was I think it was tinnitus, and I gave 0%, and it got pulled by the quality department, and the gentleman said, Dwayne, grant 10%. It was my first claim. Um, so I don't see why they would grant 0% and then say it's due to pyramiding because it has its own diagnostic code. So I've never seen that before twisted. So I would have to actually see the rating decision for them saying that. Okay. Um, I'm flipping back and forth here, Dave. Some of these questions. I know a vet who is over 600%. What can he apply for an SMC? I never seen a vet at 600%. Not saying that it's not possible. You only get paid for the 100%. Chris, you have to go to the M21 and 38 CFR and look at all the SMCs. I don't know of any VA employee that memorized all the criteria for each SMC. You have to go to the SMC that they think they should be awarded and look at that criteria to see if they qualify. Okay, someone says 401k is a question. I think
You,
he originally said, what about buying land to build on a home? Then he says 401k. So I don't know exactly what he's asking there.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So T, let us know. Please clarify. All
Oh,
right,
that's a good
Dita,
one.
if my husband used his VA loan for our house here in Texas, can I use mine for a property in Louisiana? Uh-oh. Okay.
Oh, well, now we got a good question. Dual
Yeah.
military. How does that work? So, if your husband bought a property in Texas, he can still, depending on how much he bought it for, there's still the ability to use the V loan again without a down payment. You just capped at a certain dollar amount. But yes, you can definitely use your benefits now to purchase another property. Now, it has to make sense. Like you're going to be like working there, or if your job allows you to work 100% remote, you can live anywhere in the country. So, as long as the situation financially makes sense, you can 100% do that. That's one of
Okay.
the big advantages of dual military because you have kind of a two unlimited loans that you can do stuff with.
Okay. So she can, what I'm hearing you saying, she can go purchase that property in Louisiana and stay there for 30 days and probably move out back to Texas and say, okay, I'm gonna use that as a rental property.
I think that's up to each individual on something like that.
Okay.
That's yeah, because the VA doesn't necessarily like again they have a you certify you're going to occupy this property as your primary residence. That's first.
Mhm.
You intend to occupy within 60 days. That is another component of the VA home loan. The third is that they have no set time limit on how long you have to be there. I probably just
Okay.
sounded like a politician because that was a very political answer, but that's the way I had to say
I
it.
got you.
All
I
right.
got you. So T says, I was going to ask about flipping a property to move in.
You mean like fixing up a like you flipping is buying and selling,
Yeah.
but the VA does also do renovation loans. So if you want to renovate and purchase a property, you can do that. And I'll also let you guys know that you can buy properties as is by doing what's called escrow holdbacks. That's where you actually if you're let's say buying a property might be have a little bit in bad condition, you can actually set up money as a buyer yourself aside and do the repairs after closing. We can do that all day long. But a lot of people don't know that. And a lot of veterans I talk to are like, I can't buy a home because they can't buy it as is. Yes, you can. There's ways to do that.
Okay. Man, good information. Paul says this is good information. Yes, it is. P says awesome info, David. All
Oh,
right.
yeah.
All right. T, what are the foreclosure and bankruptcy qualifications?
2 years from foreclosure, 2 years from Chapter 7, 1 year from Chapter 13. If you had a foreclosure with a VA home loan, you would have locked out a portion of your VA home loan benefits until you've paid it back. If you had another loan product, you still have your entire VA home loan to use.
Wow. You just rattled it off like, the Jeopardy.
It's the only thing I could remember is this job.
All right. Paul says, how about transferring the VA home loan to your child?
Oh man, this is a good one because you can't transfer a VA home loan. Technically, you can't transfer it, but what you can do is all VA home loans are assumable. So, Paul, that's a great question because a lot of people are using the VA home loan with the VA home loan assumption feature for their children to assume their VA home loans, well, especially if they got super low interest rates, because if you pass away, it goes to a state, you're going to have to refinance out of it. You could have your child assume your VA home loan as an investment property, lock in your benefits into that property. You still live there, but they can actually own that property. That's a great question. All loans are VA assumable. So you can actually, like, if Dwayne has a property you're selling, you got a VA loan, you got a great rate, and you're like, David, I'll give you the VA home loan. He will get his benefits back. I will take his VA home loan on. I give him a difference in the equity, and you can have a low interest rate. That's another option. But that's like a whole separate, like, we need an hour block just to explain how that works because, that's the thing. It's like the way it's like filing for VA disability is easy to say, but then the process itself, right?
Ooh.
There's a lot of small nuances you need to know. And like, that's what I'm good at to explain it. But, everyone's situation is different and it's also a time thing.
Right. So Jeff B, I'm not going to put your question up because that was your question. I see you said LOL there. Okay. All right. Anthony, will charge-offs and collections disqualify veterans from being able to use their VA loan? What is the minimum credit score needed for using the VA loan?
Another great question. VA does not have a minimum credit score requirement, but most lenders do. I'd say 99.9% of lenders do. Like, for example, we can go down to 500 credit score. Now, really anything under 620, the qualifications change a little bit. But as far as charge-offs and collections go, they don't necessarily disqualify you unless it's a federal debt. So you leave the military, you owe them money. Like, let's say clothing allowance wasn't paid $500 and that's a collection on your credit, or you don't know about it. We run a Cavers report. We would then flag it and you'd be denied for the VA home loan.
What's
You're
that report
behind.
again? What's that report you said, Dave? I hate to cut you off.
It's like something the lenders use. It's called the Cavers report. Like, only we have access to that. But so if you have like military debt that you owe, you're behind on student loans, and like you're or defaulted on government student loans. You don't qualify for the VA home loan anymore. If you owe debt to the government, like you get overpaid on disability stuff and you're not paying that back, then also you'll get dinged for, you won't be able to use your VA home loan. So that's actually a pretty good question.
Yeah. Wow.
But the charge-offs don't necessarily disqualify you. We might look at them and assess a dollar payment to it. So it might affect your overall qualification. But, it's just going to be based on what your circumstances are.
Okay. So we have about 12 minutes left.
Yeah.
We're gonna get through as many questions as we can. But I think, Dave, and we're gonna have to pick another time to do this. We got 128 people in here, which is good because this is our first time doing it. I remember when I did my first live, I had like 8 people. And I think I knew all of them. So, this is definitely good. But these are a lot of good questions, and I'm learning. It's that time. How long do you have to be on the deed before I can refinance the loan?
6 months typically.
Okay.
I know what he's asking. Yeah, it's 6 months. You got to be on a deed of a property. So if you didn't purchase the property, Like, let's say, Dwayne, you purchased a property, you put me on the deed of that property. For me to refinance your loan, I need to be on title for 6 months.
Oh, okay. Plated. Are you a chef? Looking for a
It's,
private chef.
yeah,
Does the
I'm
VA
looking for recipes.
you looking for Does the VA have a bank statement loan?
No, not that I know of.
Okay. Benny, do you have a preference between Veterans United and Navy Federal for first time borrowers?
You want me to answer that honestly? Don't
I
pick
think
either one.
no.
You guys
Ooh.
can, and the reason I don't, maybe we should step back on that. The VA, and I think other people have asked too, is like, how do interest rate works? You have interest rates, you have fees, and you have customer service, right? Just like anything in life. VA loans, the VA loan is the best loan product that's out there, but it's also the most expensive loan product in the country, and because of large banks and lending institutions that focus on the military. So on average, okay, average closing costs on a home is about 3%. Veterans pay 5% for no reason because they get hit with a lot of junk fees. So when I talk to people, and this happens, Dwayne, all the time, and we'll look at their statements and they'll be like, oh, we're getting charged discount points and origination fees for these interest rates. And I look at it and go like, I can give you the same rate with no fees. And they're like,
Mm,
what do you mean? And that's why a lot of veterans don't realize how those programs work. So a lot of these big veteran focused banks will charge these fees and veterans just go with it. That's why I say
wow.
that. I bank with them as well, but it's just and plus you probably want more of a personalized experience because a lot of the big places it's a factory system,
Mhm.
right? It's like when you get frustrated with the VA, like with the claims process, like it's a factory system. It's not like you or me where we're walking people through that process. You're kind understanding, like, I know your situation. These are the options you have. It's more customized for that.
Okay. Okay. So basically, what you're saying is, whatever the interest rate is, you have these big box banks. They're
Yeah.
charging all these not hidden fees, but charging these fees. But you could get the same interest rate, and they could possibly save what $2,000 on what is it called, the closing disclosure statement,
Oh
where
no,
it has
the
all those.
origination fee. And so on average, they'll save about 6 to 8,000.
Okay, going with the company you work for, right?
Yeah, going with us, like, yeah,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
it's it's kind of, yeah.
Okay, all right. Um, got a couple of minutes, about 8 more minutes. Going to get
Wait,
through a few more questions here.
I'll share my contact info again. People were asking.
Yeah. Can I sue the VA for a botched surgery on my knee replacement? There's two things you got to think about: tort claim and 1151 claim. I have not talked about 1151 claim in any of my 350 videos. Okay. Like Dave said, certain topics, that's a whole nother hour. I rated several 1151 claims. I granted a few, denied a few, but there's a process and it'll take longer than what we have to talk about it. But if you go to the M21 manual reference, just type in 1151. Actually, I just had a video drop today teaching you how to search through the M21 manual reference. Okay. I'm going to try to get to, before we wrap up, Dave, I'm going to show you information again as well.
Yeah.
I purchased my home in 2014 using a VA loan. I did not have a service-connected disability, so I paid all the associated fees. I'm now 90% disabled. How far does the VA go back to refund the purchase fees?
It would be the only fee you'd get refunded is the VA funding fee, and it would if you used the VA home in 2014. Remember, Dwayne, what'd you say the case number has to be assigned? What's it called again?
They sign an EP number
Yeah.
to it.
So once the EP number has been assigned, if it was assigned before that, you get the refund. Important thing to note too for the veterans that qualify for the uh, property tax exemption, you do not need to have a VA home loan on it in order to get the property tax exemption. That's number one. Two, it has to be your primary residence. And three, if you have a family member like a parent that that meets the VA disability criteria for property tax waivers, you can put them on the deed of the property and you will get the exemption.
Okay. All right, VA question here. What does it mean when a supplemental claim reflects the status of compensation issue? Ari, the VA doesn't train raters on which shows on their website as it pertains to the status. Now, what they do on the back end may reflect in that algorithm that shows whatever reflects on the front end that the veteran is viewing, but they don't give VA employees on training. Oh, if you do this, this will be reflected when the veteran logs into VA.gov to check their status. Okay, so I've actually never seen that before. Compensation issue. I haven't even heard of that. Okay. Another question for you, Dave. Can a VA loan be transferred to family member after death? I think you already answered for during life, but after death.
It has to be that's why you do it while they're alive. You will not be able to transfer it once they've passed away.
Okay. Dave, someone's asking for your contact information. I'll show it again when we start to wrap up. Is there how would you like people to contact you, Dave? Email?
I think the easiest way is to shoot me an email and set up a time, or you can go to let me see. I can drop my Calendly, and then you guys, if you want to be able to set up a meeting with me that way, that's also pretty easy to do.
And should they tell you, Dave, hey, I saw you and Dwayne live or whatever?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell us where you guys got our contact information. That's going to be the most important thing. I'm going to drop it in.
And Dave and I are on LinkedIn. We're connected on LinkedIn. So if you have a LinkedIn account, connect with me. I'm connected with Dave or vice versa. I am streaming this on LinkedIn, and we're streaming it on my YouTube channel and on his YouTube channel as well. So definitely get his contact information. Okay. You ready, Dave, for this question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Loan underwriter on average has about 45 minutes to review a file on average.
I don't know. I think it depends. Sometimes some of the files are a bit sticky, and sometimes they got to put a lot of fires out. So it just depends.
I wonder if they like pizza. Do underwriters eat pizza?
Listen, I've sent pizza to offices. Sometimes you got to lube the deals.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I have seizures since I cannot drive. Can VA give me one-time payment for a car? That's automobile allowance is what it's called. Go to my YouTube channel. I just did a video on that maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. Okay, and I explained what that is, what form you need to submit, and the criteria. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to get it. I want to get another. Okay, here we go. Another home loan question. Mr. G, how about credit? How is 600 something score looked at? I gross about 110K a year.
So, I mean, I'm pulling out my nifty calculator, but the problem is that we need to know what the liabilities look like, because that's going to be factored into this. Has a significant impact on that. But let's just use rough numbers. Hold on. You're probably looking around like 450, 500,000 just off the top of my head.
Okay.
Depending on liabilities, because some people, if you make 110 a year, but you have a 2,000 a month car payment, it's going to be a lot less. So that's the thing. Like, what people don't realize is like a $700 car payment reduces your purchasing power by $100,000.
Wow. Well, let me ask you this, Dave. If you have 12 months, you have 13 months left to pay on that vehicle, will they include that car payment in your DTI?
Only when you have 10 months or less, and it's at the underwriter's discretion. Most of the time they allow for it, but it might have a significant impact. So let's say the car payment is $2,000 a month and you make 6,000 a month. Well, that's not, they're not going to let that happen, right? But you make 10,000 a month, car payments $400 a month. Okay, they can omit that. And you can't pay it down to 10 months either. You have to have 10 months left. So keep that
Right.
in mind. A lot of crafty veterans out there, they'll be like, oh, I found the loophole. And I'm like, no, you cannot do that.
Right. Well, let me ask you this, Dave. What about if, your significant other is using they have a large card note, right?
Mhm.
And they're using their certificate eligibility and the DTI, in that scenario, can the other, their significant other be on that loan too and use their income to help lower that DTI if they had to, the scenario you just gave where the car note may be 15, 16, $1,700 a month?
Yeah, so that's a good point, right? So if somebody's married, like their spouse could be on the VA home loan, offset all of that. That's too easy.
Okay.
The only time you run into an issue with that, because sometimes veterans also will be like, hey, spouse, you take on all the debt. I will get the VA home loan because then I have no debt, right? And then they can qualify for more. Now, if you're in a community property state, that actually backfires because a
Mhm.
veteran can purchase on their own, but a spouse's credit report must be pulled and all their liabilities must be used against them. So be careful, depending on what state you're buying in, that can affect you.
Okay.
And
So, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
no, no, yeah. Otherwise, we can talk for hours. Like, yeah.
That-
So it's like,
yeah. So we're at that 1 hour mark. This is 1 hour. So I'm gonna put up one last question, and then we're gonna ask Dave for his contact information again. I'll pull it up. Give people time to write it down. Is a 6.6.5 interest rate good rate in today's market?
it is, but depends on how the rate is structured.
Okay.
Because the 6.5, depending on the price point of a property, that would look like there's some type of buy down associated with that, and discount points and origination fees.
Okay. All right. Uh, So we want to say thank you to Dito Girl, Texas. Thank you for the donation. Really appreciate that. Thank you. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to put, I think Dave said he put his information. We'll put it up here for everyone. This was only an hour. Good information. We went back and forth between VA home loan, VA compensation. Hey, just real quick in the chat, a comment, everybody put a one in there if you want us to do this again. Put a one in the comments and let us know if you want us to do this again. Like I say, this is our first time, and I think it went really great. Like I said, I can remember first time I went live, and I had like 8 people. you know? So yeah, we got a lot of ones, Dave. We got to do this. We got to do this again. And before we go, there's Dave's information. I want to bring up this individual, and we're going to answer his question. I'll tell you why. Um, Free guy. Hi, Dwayne. A loan. Is there a ceiling for VA loan for a second home? Uh, Established first home, VA home loan, and want to buy a new home. That's that be my primary. So a new. Can you figure that out, Dave?
Hold on, let me look at this. Yes, there is. Yeah, I understand the question.
All
All right.
right.
So if you don't have an outstanding VA home loan, there is no max on how much you can qualify for as long as you're eligible for that price point. If you have a VA loan and you keep that property and you want to buy another loan and use another VA home loan, don't kill me for this. You're subject to the Fannie Mae single family county loan limit for the area that you're buying in, which across the country it's 726,200, and in high cost areas like DC it's 1,089,300. So as long as the combined amount isn't more than that, you don't have to have a down payment. If the amount is more than that, you pay a 25% down payment of the difference. Now that made sense to me. Wait, did that make sense to you guys?
Didn't make sense
It's
to me.
just a
I'm
lot.
not.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
yeah, there's a lot of
yeah,
info that's out there, guys. It's
yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why I wanted you to answer this gentleman's question, and I know who this person is, he is actually the reason why I have a YouTube channel. We
Oh, that's
went through a
awesome.
veteran entrepreneurship program, and on break, imagine sitting. He didn't know what a rater was, I don't think. So we were sitting in the training. We were going through the training, and he was just start asking me about VA questions. And on the break, it was always he was asking me. He's like, "Man, you're like a walking VA dictionary." And at the end, by the end of the class, he said, "You know what? I got an idea. You got to start your own YouTube channel." I'm like, "Man, nobody's gonna listen to me on YouTube." And then he called me like 30 days later. He's like, "Hey, you start that channel yet?" Nope. And then he called me in 30 days after that. You start that channel yet? I was like, "Nope." I was like, "Wait a minute. Maybe he's on to something." And now we're here. So
That's awesome.
thank you, free guy. So hey, somebody asked for Dave's email. I had it up. I'll put it up again right quick. There. No, this is better because you could actually go here, Calendly.com, VA housing, education. I'll leave it up for a couple seconds. It's in the comment section of this in the comment section. So definitely reach out, let them know, hey, I saw you and Dwayne interested in refinancing. I got questions about purchasing a condo, or who's that Dito girl from Texas that want to purchase that house in Louisiana. I'm pretty sure Dave can definitely help you with that. So reach out to him. Like I said, it's a wealth of knowledge. Him and I connected on LinkedIn, and we were just going back and forth. Actually, before we got on live, he was asking me some questions about VA compensation. So I'm definitely going to be picking his brain about some stuff that we talked about. But I saw a lot of ones in the comments. So definitely, Dave and I we'll collaborate offline and maybe pick another date that we can do this. But make sure this video is going to be my Facebook business page on Dave's. Matter of fact, Dave, what is your YouTube channel handle? I'm sorry, I
It's a
don't think I
VA housing education.
VA housing education. Go out to his YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe, hit that notification button, select all. So when he goes live, if he's with me, we're going live at the same time. You'll get that notification. A lot of my viewers should have gotten when we posted this. I think it was last Friday or Saturday. You should have got a notification on your phone saying, "Hey, you're going live," and what the topic is. Um, so somebody left. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Free said, "Thanks, Dwayne. Yep, you started my class." You started my class.
That's
Never knew what it
awesome.
was, and now close to. All right. So free guy, almost called him by first name, but free guy, definitely appreciate it. David, you stick around for a minute. I got a question for you.
Yeah.
But anyway, everybody, thank you for joining us. We want to do more. You've seen me go live. I think I was live last night. Had an event for some individuals that attended an event of mine last week, early Tuesday night. Then I was definitely looking forward to tonight. We will be back. So definitely support. Go to David's YouTube channel. What's that YouTube channel again, Dave?
VA
You got to
housing
plug it.
education.
You
Yeah.
got to plug that. VA housing
I
education.
see
VA
that.
housing education. You got to plug it.
VA housing education.
Right. So definitely he's on YouTube. We got some videos. And hopefully we got some things that we're going to be doing here in the near future. And maybe we can do a Zoom where we may invite maybe 20 people and you can actually live talk to Dave, just, in person, sort of, but in Zoom. Okay. So with that being said, go to his, Dave's YouTube channel, like, subscribe, hit that notification button, and share this link to this video in your social media on Facebook if the admin will allow it. That way, other veterans can get this information. Okay. Everybody, take care and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.